want to welcome you back to Black Site, and tonight we're going to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of Last Dance with Michael Jordan. This was a tremendous episode, just as 1 and 2 was. It first starts off showing the Detroit Pistons, my favorite team of all times, and how it took the Detroit Pistons to get over the hump to become the champions that they became, the toughness of the Detroit Pistons, and it also centered around Dennis Rodman, probably the greatest rebounder and one of the greatest defensive players of all time. And it also melded in to him being part of the Chicago Bulls. This is why I think this documentary is so good. It's the way they can take one part of one decade and put it into another, especially with Dennis Rodman in the second half of their three-peat with the Chicago Bulls. Showing the Detroit Pistons showed how tough it is to play a team as talented as the Pistons, as physical as the Pistons, and as mentally tough as the Pistons. And it took the Chicago Bulls 3 to 4 years to get over that hump. And once they got over that hump, you saw what happened next. Another part I truly enjoyed was how they showed Doug Collins taking over as coach and Phil Jackson coming in as an assistant coach. And that Doug Collins had a Michael Jordan centered offense. But bringing in Tex Winter, probably one of the greatest offensive coaches of all time, that Doug Collins did not want to listen to Tex Winter's triangle offense. So this episode, I really think made Jerry Krause look better. For the simple fact is that Jerry Krause, somewhere during the middle of his second season as head coach, Doug Collins said, hey, I'm going to have to go with Phil Jackson as head coach, because he felt as though Doug Collins was not the coach to get the Chicago Bulls over the hump. By him firing Doug Collins, even though they went to the Eastern Conference Final, and bringing in Phil Jackson and Tex Winter's triangle offense, made the Chicago Bulls a championship basketball team. Because what he did, Michael Jordan always had the ball in his hands. So what he decided to do is say, hey, I want all the players to touch the ball. That makes Scottie Pippen better. It made Horace Grant better. It made John Paxson better. So all of they begin to become a team, not a Michael Jordan centric team. And once they had that happen, the Chicago Bulls really took off. And you see the way they played as a team, but the confidence of the basketball team grew under Phil Jackson and Tex Winters. And it all came together when they finally swept the Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. And this is what this whole thing is about. I believe this documentary is about a journey and how tough it is to reach the mountaintop in the NFL, NBA, NHL, or whatever sport that you may play in. This is a great example, and it shows you even the greatest basketball player of all times sometimes has to take a step back and lead a team, not himself, but lead a team into becoming a championship team. And one thing Michael Jordan showed as a leader, as this team, is when they lost 4-3 to the Detroit Pistons before they swept them, he had the team stay in Chicago. They lifted weights. He gained weight. Tim Grover, as his trainer, put on 5 pounds, and I think Michael Jordan went from 200 to 215 pounds, which gave him the ability to go through those tough, grinding series and still have the energy to push the Bulls into a championship level basketball team. And by Michael Jordan doing it, being tough on his teammates, showing them that I'm going to put in the work, you going to put in the work, and when it's all done, we're going to be that championship team that we have been working so hard to become. But one thing I loved about this series is the way everybody talked about Dennis Rodman. Coach Daly said Dennis Rodman, he wished he had a player like Dennis Rodman. He was the best player to coach, the hardest working player. Everybody, Phil Jackson, loved Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman is one of the greatest competitors of all time. Even though I believe Dennis Rodman could have been a better scorer in the NBA, Dennis Rodman showed you what a player can do when they practice their craft. He became the best rebounder, the best defensive player. He knew his role on the team. There's so many players in the NBA who refuse to accept a role on a basketball team. But Dennis Rodman was one of those guys. He played his position. He was mentally tough, strong, and he played it to the best of his ability, and he never took away from the team. And that's what players don't understand today. Most players in the NBA feel as though I gotta score 20 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, so I can get my $200 million contract. Well, Dennis Rodman, as a player, he was worth $200 million because of the way he played the game, the way he encompassed what basketball and teamwork was all about. And when you hear all-time great coaches like Chuck Daly and Phil Jackson tell you how great Dennis Rodman is, and his teammates talk about how great of an athlete and competitor he was, it says a lot about Rodman and his ability. And they also spent time on Scottie Pippen, and that Michael Jordan needed a Robin, and that Robin ability finally came together when they swept the Detroit Pistons in that final game in that series in Detroit. Is what Michael Jordan was working on to bring him along, to make him that player that he needed to be so they could be that championship game. That was in their first run. Remember, Rodman came in the second three-peat run. And that's what Jordan did as a leader. And when people talk about him just being this scorer, this athletic ability, he showed once Michael Jordan forgot about scoring titles. And he said, as a team, I must lead this team. He led this team like no other. He took them to the pinnacle. And what also happened, I guess I really like, is showing that Phil Jackson's coaching ability. And when he asked Michael Jordan at the end of the episode, he said, who's open? He said, John Paxson. Give him the ball. Michael Jordan trusted Phil Jackson and he trusted Paxson. When he did that, that was the breakthrough. That right there, when he trusted his teammates to get it done. And you will see an upcoming series in games to come where he trusted Steve Kerr, John Paxson, to take that winning shot. That shows that Michael Jordan learned from Phil Jackson. He learned from Tex Winter. He said, I'm a winner now. And you've seen that encompassed through these second, these third and fourth episodes. You saw the journey of Michael Jordan being a great player to being a champion. And that was wonderful to see with him and his teammates. This episodes 3 and 4 can get no better. But it also shows you something about the Detroit Pistons at the end. And I just want to speak on that, about sportsmanship. You have to be a sportsman when you play sports. When you win or when you lose. No matter how good you are or how bad you are. And the Detroit Pistons didn't show it. I was a young man. I saw it. You should have saw the media uproar about it. But sportsmanship is part of the game. And we should all exemplify that when we play sports as adults and as youth. I want to thank you for listening to Black Site. I hope you subscribe to this channel, smash that like button, and share this video.